This is Killswitch, and I'll be interviewing Chris Downing, the maker of the latest Ouya portable. Chris, if you'd like to introduce yourself to the people.
Yeah, well, like you said, my name's Chris Downing, and I kind of like to dabble in electronics and so forth. And I just most recent project was the Ouya portable.
What I like to do in all interviews, whether it's hardware, software, or whatever, is ask what were some of your influences in terms of gaming, since the Ouya technically is a gaming console.
Mhm. Uh, well, I was a kid of the '80s, and I think my first system was the Atari 2600 when I was barely even old enough to hold the thing, but still fun to play. And from there, it was Nintendo and so forth. But I think really what got me into it was I think Wolfenstein 3D when that first came out, and that's kind of what I've been very interested in the first-person shooters and that type of genre.
Okay. And what got you started down the hardware side of things?
Um, well, I'd always been interested in taking things apart. Always trying to figure out how things worked, and um, it wasn't until about 5 years ago, I think, when I really started getting into it. Because I, like most other people, had those N64 controllers that had the really loose stick. After a while, they would start to, just be unresponsive and so forth. And I went online and found a mod or a fix of how to do that, which involved taking the block out and trying to figure out how to um, put the tape around the stick so just to make it tighter and so forth. And that kind of got me into looking into the rabbit hole a lot deeper because it's just like, well, this was a lot of fun. What else can I do? And
Hmm.
that's when the portable N64s were. They'd been coming out for a couple of years, but that's when I first found out about them, and I was just like, yeah, I gotta try that.
So the N64 was the first one that you did?
Yep, yep.
Okay. And just so we have a point of reference, how many of these things have you made?
Um, well, if you get into portables, three, five, I think I've made like six portables, something of that nature. But a portable, by definition, is something that will take complete. You can do it completely without a TV, or it's got to be its own power source, and it's got to have its own screens and controller. It doesn't have to necessarily be handheld, but it has to run itself. You can't plug it into the wall or can't plug it into a TV. And so those I've done, yeah, probably about six of them. And then I've had multiple other controller projects in the past few years.
Okay. Now, when you started these things, were they broken consoles, or did you just decide, hey, I want this to be portable?
No, they weren't broken. It was just really unique to see um, what some of these other modders out on the internet were doing, and I just at the time I had no soldering experience. I was a woodworker pretty much, and that's the type of stuff I did, and so I wanted to see if I could do it, and I just used whatever I had, and obviously I had to order parts and things of that nature that I didn't have on hand. But once I got all the tools and everything that I needed to uh, think think I needed, um, then I just went at it.
Huh. I don't know if you've seen my other interview with Ucro, but he also started from no experience. He's an architect, and he actually just started putting it together.
Yep.
Um, how long do you think it would take for, let's say, average person who has no skills, no soldering skills, to actually get something like this going?
It depends on what your standards are and what your expectations are to begin with. My first portable was less than aesthetically pleasing, if we want to put it that way. Um, it worked. It was functional. It wasn't comfortable. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't anything of that nature. It was more of a conceptual test. And that took about 6 months just to get that far.
Hmm.
But, I was also probably going at it a little bit harder than I really needed to, because instead of, taking a pre-made enclosure or something of that nature to fit it in, I got right off the bat with vacuum forming too. And that was kind of a learning curve in itself, which took quite a while for me to figure out and actually dial in. But once that came about, then that became an invaluable skill, at least, for the first 3 or 4 years of it.
Okay. Vacuum forming is something that I've looked into also.
Mhm.
Um, I keep trying to stay away from doing this thing, but it keeps calling my name for some reason. Because
Yeah.
I've looked at vacuum forming, 3D printing, CNC. I've looked at them all. So,
Yep.
out of
And go ahead.
out of those, what would you say is your favorite, least favorite, and what direction do you go in when you go to making your cases?
I honestly love them all. Really, each one of them has their own learning curve, and the 3D printing is amazing in terms of what you can build on the inside. Because not only that, you first have to learn how to use CAD. That's something I didn't know how to do either. So I got in, forced myself how to learn SolidWorks a couple of years ago, and since then that really opened up all kinds of opportunities, because um, as opposed to having a pre-made enclosure that you either have to fit the components in, with 3D printing, you can actually design the enclosure to fit around the components. It's kind of like an inside out design instead of the other way around. And that really just makes it's a game changer when it comes to doing these portables. Um, but it's also one of the most expensive ways of doing it. Uh, Vacuum forming, on the other hand, is a really cheap and easy way of doing it, although there's a skill learning curve, getting the temperatures and all that other stuff right so you don't overheat the plastic or don't underheat it, and the type of vacuum table that you have, the type of vacuum source you're using. There's all kinds of variables with that, but for relatively cheap, you can get away and start making your own custom designs. Um, and CNC is another one which I absolutely love, because it makes up for the shortfalls of 3D printing in terms of aesthetic quality. 3D printing is not quite at a level yet, at least for home consumers, that they can take a 3D printed case and then just go to show with it. There's a ton of work that needs to be done to make these aesthetically pleasing. A lot of filling, a lot of sanding, and things of that nature. But if you combine the two, 3D printing and CNC cutting, then you've got the crisp, clean corners, you've got the perfectly milled out edges, you've got everything, and it lines up and it works and it's beautiful.
Hmm. And what was used for your Ouya portable?
Uh, 3D printing and CNC.
Well, since we're discussing it, do you have
Mhm.
it with you?
I do actually. Got it right here. That guy. Sorry about the glares.
It can, and that's basically what you just mentioned about the smooth edges and all that. You can
Mm-hmm.
you can see everything rounded off.
Yeah, I mean, 3D printing, like with these buttonholes and so forth, they wouldn't be a perfect circle. They'd be slightly oblonged or not in the right, just not circle. um, but the CNC machine does an extremely good job of making precise cuts like that. And same thing with the engravings. You can make the engravings. You can do all sorts of things that just would not come out nice on a 3D printer.
Hmm.
And then on the back side, this is actually two different parts, but that's 3D printed back, and this whole top right part right here is 3D printed as well, and then it's just glued and plastic welded to the back
Hmm.
so that it stays put. But the Ouya is actually sitting right there, and there's the heat vent for it, and then the USB.
Okay. Um, Why don't you give us a little background on that project?
Um, yeah, I mean, it was basically something that I've wanted to do for a while. Last year, I did a project that I brought to Kickstarter that wasn't exactly successful by any means, but it was still a good shot. But the Crossplane was, probably my biggest project that I've done to date, and that was a multi-system wireless video interface, which means if you wanted to play um, PlayStation 3, you could. If you wanted to play Xbox 360, you could, all on this wireless handset. You just take out the controller packs, and then it uses that system, or whatever controller pack you put in, it plays that system. And the Ouya was one of the systems that was compatible with it. And so that's why with my Ouya video, when we were going back and forth about people saying, "Hey, that looks just like Ben Heck's idea," I'm just like, well, no, it was kind of mine to begin with, I think. But that's ever since I did that and saw the Ouya on there, I thought it'd be really cool to have a dedicated system, and so that's really what I set out to do.
Yeah, unfortunately for you Crow, and all the others, Ben Heck is out there.
Yeah, he was one of the inspirations though back in the day when I first started. I mean, his projects were very much. I do say they were inspirational, just because it was really cool to see somebody pulling it off the way he was. And then when you get into it a little bit more, it's you start looking at things a little differently, being like, well, it sounds a little. Sorry, my headphones went nutty there for a second.
All right.
But yeah, I mean, he does good work, and it's very fun to see what he comes up with next. But you know, it's just when he does something, he's going to be the one that gets the attention for it.
Yeah,
So,
and everyone else gets called Ben Heck wannabes.
yeah.
Well, he does do good work. He's kind of the reason I was thinking about doing a PS2 portable.
Mm-hmm.
For me, around that time I was playing baseball, football, doing all these things. I really, maybe once or twice, I have actually touched the PlayStation 2.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of why I wanted to do it. And looking at him pulling things apart was the reason.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I have like 25 years building and upgrading computers, but I've never actually did like a portable.
Mm-hmm.
But unlike some of the guys that are doing it now, I actually have soldering skills. I mean, I do plumbing, so there's the soldering part. You know,
Oh, yeah,
different
yeah,
soldering, but I
different.
I have used a soldering iron too. So I did go to school for audio engineering. So do have the background to do all this stuff. I just I'm trying to stop myself from doing it.
Yeah. Well, it is a path that once you start down, it will consume a lot of your time, and
Exactly.
that's not a bad thing. I mean, it's another skill set, and it's been great for me. It's taken me a lot of places, places that I wouldn't have imagined I'd be going. Last year I went and got flown out to Irvine, California, and interviewed at Oculus VR. So
Hmm.
it was actually a pretty cool experience, and just through the networking is how I got to know those guys. And three of my friends now are working there. So it was pretty neat.
Well, I mean, it's not a bad path if that's what you want to do. As
Mm.
as you know, I'm more on the software development side, but and trying to stay there. So,
Yeah, yeah.
but it is something that draws you in because people saw yours, they want to do it. They saw you crows, they want to do it. It's
Mm-hmm.
and you saw, I don't know if you saw, but Ben Heck's videos. Everyone's waiting for the next one to come out so they can go look at it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's it's just kind of the way it is. There's an inherent curiosity about this type of stuff. Seeing how things work, and that that's what I really love about this is I'm always learning something new as I go, finding out better ways of doing things that I've been doing for the past 4 or 5 years, and it's a constant evolution. Things are changing, and um, it's just fun to see where it goes from there.
Well,
Excuse
you
me.
have guys like you Crow, all the others who are coming from like no experience on some of these things.
Mhm.
So it's not something that's terribly difficult. It's just the time you have to put into it.
Well, it's not like anything else. I mean, when you first start out, it is going to be difficult, no matter what. Even the basic stuff
Well,
is quite challenging to do. But um, and then from there, it can get a lot more complex and complicated. I mean, the project that I'm doing now, I did it in, or the Ouya. It took me about a month to do, but 5 years ago, this would have taken me well over a year at least.
wow.
And yeah, that's just the way it is. And this thing, it depends on how advanced you want to go because this one's got custom controller boards built right into it, so you didn't have to use the monstrosity of the actual Ouya controller to fit in there. So this is all custom made that a friend of mine did for me, and
Hmm.
then it's got all these leftover circuit boards that we use for the crossplane, and so these were custom done again by my friend RDC,
Hmm.
and all designed around the CAD file that I made for the crossplane, which is why this one went so quick because I already had the cases, I already had everything designed. I just had to make some modifications to fit the Ouya in there.
Like I may have worded that a little awkwardly. Shouldn't have said not difficult because obviously there's a learning curve. But not, let's just say not impossible as a lot of people think.
Right, and that's yes, it's always going to be a challenge no matter what, but it's not impossible. And the amount of time you put into it is directly proportional to what you're going to get out of it. So it's just a matter of really being able to focus and stay focused and not get frustrated and quit. Because that's a lot of people try to get into the hobby. I've seen it time and time again. And then they, get all the materials, they spend $500 on parts, and then they fry their screen or the batteries blow up because they wired something backwards, and it just I can see why that would take the wind out of your sails, but education is expensive no matter which way you put it, and failure is just another option to to get over the hump and start really making what you want become a reality. So
And speaking of expensive, like you just mentioned, um, these aren't the cheapest things in the world to make.
no, no,
Because even the screen could cost you as much as an Ouya.
yeah, this screen actually in that one did actually more than the Ouya. It's it's only a 7-inch 720p screen, but it those are still buying in one off is about 110, 115 bucks a piece. You can get some down for like 75 or something like that, but then you get weird viewing angles and you have to hold it the right way in order to see it clearly. Where this one is just absolutely beautiful.
Yeah. Or you could get lucky and get one of those PS2 screens that are out there. Have seen them, just can't get to them.
Don't waste your time. They're junk. They work, but the new backup screens that eBay has, the ones for that you put on your car, if you're just using composite, don't even
Oh,
bother with the PS2 screens or the PS1 screens actually, because they are overpriced. The motherboards are huge on the inside. They're difficult to work with, and these new ones are just their motherboards are smaller than the screen itself, and everything's labeled as to where you need to solder your signal wire, your power wire, and your ground wire. It's all right there. So
hmm.
don't waste your time on those PS1 screens anymore because they're just TFT backup screens are gonna do the world for you. They'll do everything you need, and a lot of them too are PAL and NTSC switchable.
So the backup screens right now would be the best choice?
Yep, and 4-inch or 4.3-inch is about 19 bucks.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, that could help.
yes, because the PS1 screens, even the clones or the Zenith ones, are still going to run you $40, $50, and then you have shipping on top of that. So, yeah,
Yeah.
don't bother with those anymore. It was a great idea at the time, and then all the modders thought that was the only thing, so they bought them all up, and then the prices went whoop, and really no reason for that now.
Hmm. Okay. Um, any other tips you might have on bringing the cost down? Because I'm going off of what I know. I'm assuming yours costs somewhere between 4 and 500.
The Ouya, yeah, I think it about that. So you had the Ouya, you had the screen. The batteries are always a big expense. Those two, you got to realize that there are a lot of different options for them out there, but when you get something this big, powering a 7-inch screen, and and everything else in there, you got to have something with some juice in it. And those have two 3.7-volt lithium polymer batteries in there, uh, wired in series, so they're at 7.4 volts and 5,000 milliamp, which
Hmm.
runs this thing for about 4.5 hours, which isn't bad. I'm not going to be sitting and playing for 4.5 hours. At least I hope not. Otherwise, I've got bigger issues. But it's one of those things that for the money, those battery cells are about $18 a piece,
Hmm.
and then you have to buy the charging circuit and the charger because you have to have a specific charger, which will go with those particular batteries. Because if you overcharge them or undercharge them and they fail, they make one hell of a scary explosion.
That's good to know.
Yeah, yeah. If as long as you go by the theory that batteries are bombs, you should be safe. So you're going to take a lot of time and really make sure you do that right because reversing the polarity, yeah, you can fry some of your components if you do that, but it's not nearly as bad as if you were to overcharge a battery and keep feeding it once it's reached its capacity because these are liquid filled batteries, and that's what makes a very nasty fiery spray when they fail.
Okay, well, you might have just scared off half of the people thinking about doing it, but it is.
It's a safe. It's part of it. You got to be careful, and it's really. I might be making it sound worse than it really is. I mean, that's obviously worst case scenario, but it will. You just got to keep your attention to detail when you're soldering these things up, and don't deviate from the guides that are out there because as long as it's from a respectable site and people have used it before, then it's usually safe to follow. But and you'll be able to tell the difference.
Okay. Um, since you do the mods, do you ever work on cars and trucks? And I'm sure you know why I'm asking this.
um, nope. I'm actually, as far as vehicles go, I'm about as illiterate as it comes.
Okay.
Um, I I'd like to one day get into it, but I don't have the interest in vehicles as I do small electronics, and I don't have the tools to work on vehicles and so forth. Like I do the electronics. It's a much different demographic.
Okay. Well,
And it's,
I'm sure you've seen the. I think it was a Dodge Ram that has one.
I did see that. Yep.
There was some Dodge van on Twitter. There
Mm-hmm.
was a. Ironically, they're all Dodges. The other one was a 300.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I'd take the time to do it. It's something that I haven't done also, but you know, seems to be simple wiring.
Well, that all you needed to do really. He said it was even on an HDMI. There's an HDMI input already built in the dash. So pretty much, from what I understand, it was if he wanted to, he could take the Ouya right out of its casing and then just plug it directly into into the car. He'd still have to wire power to it, which I'm not really sure. I'm sure the 12 volt DC out from the car would be more than sufficient to run it.
Hmm.
Not taking anything away from it, it's still a brilliant idea. Just it's relatively simple when you're not also putting together controls or anything of that nature. Because I'm sure to play that, you still had to have a controller in your hand.
I must have missed that HDMI part then. That I did not know.
Hmm.
Okay. Oh, I mean, I've seen people wiring up radios and all that. I used to have the in-dash DVD and all that, so have seen it done.
Yep.
The Dodge, the the van, I believe it was. Either one of them had it completely wired in.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's not that really. The wiring part is one of the simplest things to do unless you're going direct, because if you can buy an over the shelf HDMI cable if you want, those work just fine, and just plug it into the back and wire it through the back of the dash or something of that nature. But if you're wiring it directly, that can take some skill.
Well, on this forum, we seem to have people from everywhere, so there might be someone out there who could give us a guide, and then others can do it too.
Yeah, I mean it all depends on the complexity, and it depends on how uh, how much time again you really want to put into it.
Hmm. Well, there is one question that, for some reason, has eluded me until now. I should have asked you this at the beginning.
Mhm.
What brought you to Ouya?
Well, again, it was just it was with the crossplane. When I was doing that project last year, I had heard of the Ouya. I'd seen the Kickstarter for it, and it was impressive, but I didn't think a whole lot of it at the time. And then when we were trying to find out or get as many systems compatible with the crossplane as we could, and we picked one up, that's when I started playing with it, and
Mhm.
I got hooked on Ice Rage and a few of the other games on there, which the early ones that were a lot of fun to play. And when we got it compatible with the crossplane, then it was, like I said at the beginning, something I really wanted to put in uh, its own portable version, because I thought that'd be pretty cool and slightly ironic at the same time.
Hmm. Okay. Um. Well, as you know, we have people who say, "Why would you want to make it a portable?" Where they were trying to get away from that with all the Android stuff.
Hmm.
Uh, how do you view that?
It's kind of a slippery slope, because I understand what they were going for, and it makes perfect sense. It's nice to have and sit back on the couch with a controller in hand and just play those Android games right on TV. But I don't really think of the Ouya, as an Android platform. I just think of it as an Ouya platform. People are coming to this development, or coming to Ouya for its developmental freedom, and that's one of the huge things that I really love about it, and so forth. But it is hard to get people away from the notion that, yes, it's an Android-based console, I just want to play it on my phone. That doesn't exactly hold up, in my opinion, just because the phones are good, but they're not dedicated gaming machines. That's what the Ouya is. It's dedicated towards gaming. That's what its sole purpose is, and it's to bring people and indie developers and have a platform to express that creativity. And I think the same can go for the hardware side too. You see a lot of these people doing these case mods and so forth, and but as far as making it a home-based console, I mean, I don't think locking it down, um, to a TV exclusively is the only way this could go.
Hmm.
And by building this, it's only kind of confirmed some of those ideas of mine, because yeah, well, why wouldn't you just play it on your phone? You're not going to have the tactile feel. You're not going to feel like you're actually playing a game on a touch screen the way you would with an actual controller in your hand. It's not the same. And you could go and buy one of those Mogu or whatever the hell they're called, the attachments for your phone. But again, it's still, the phone is doing 1,000 other things at the same time. It's not dedicated towards gaming, and that's what I like about the Ouya platform, and what the whole idea behind it is. And I'd love to try and take that a step further.
Hmm. Well, obviously you made a portable, so you are into the hardware side. But on on the Ouya side of this, where do you fall? Are you more software, hardware? Where are you?
I am afraid of code. I just can't do it. I can't wrap my mind around the concept of it. And that's kind of one of the biggest downfalls I think in terms of my development side is that I just coding is a challenge to me. I don't understand the languages. I don't understand how it works. I know the basic in outs of file and database stuff and how you pull things, but how a game actually works, I have no clue. So I would definitely have to say I'm more along the lines of the hardware, fabrication, industrial design, that type of thing. Um, excuse me. And but so yeah, I'm kind of like a visionary in that sense, I think, more than I am a developer.
Hmm. But you're not one of the guys who is like only interested in the hardware. Like we have one or two members where their only interest is the hardware. Once in a while, they may talk about a game or someone gives them a game to play, but it stays. I want to put an antenna on this. I want to do this. Want to do that,
Yeah.
but it's never anything else.
Well, the hardware is not really as fun with software to go with it. You have to have the hardware to play games. What's the point of hardware for games to play? So, it is very much as uh, I just know one day. I mean, if I could make a game, the ideas flow the same way. I just don't have the ability to put.
Hmm.
So, yes, I'm still very interested in this thing. I'm good at one thing, so I try to, or better, I should say, at one thing, and try to gravitate more towards that.
Okay, well, very fair answer. Um, well, you did mention that you were playing some of the games earlier, Ice Rage and others. What are some of your current favorite games on Ouya?
Um, that's there's been a lot of really good ones coming out now, recently anyway, and I don't think I remember seeing so many good ones coming out in a short period of time. But I'm I've been talking a lot with Phil, Phil Royer, Maker of Low, and I like that one quite a bit. And Pinball Arcade, I'm absolutely in love with because I think I almost beat the high score that was loaded in the system on Funhouse, which is my favorite physical pinball arcade game of all time. So it's really cool to sit and play that, uh, just right here at home. And huge Final Fantasy buff. I've been into Final Fantasy since 1997 when Final Fantasy 7 came out, and that's probably even more my favorite genre than the shooters. If I had to put a level of liking on it. Um, so Final Fantasy 3 on this has been so much fun, the remade version of it, uh, when I can actually play it when the servers aren't down.
Yeah, that has been a problem lately.
But no, I understand there's a lot going through those things right now, especially with the amount of traffic that they've been getting. I'm sure a lot of good stuff is coming out, so you just got to be ready to handle it.
That's true. And since they're a small company, it may have just been we're not ready.
Yeah, one could speculate all they want, but I try to avoid doing that really because it's not
Yeah,
gonna change anything, and forming opinions without knowing the facts is then it's
true.
just an opinion.
That's true, but usually when it comes to servers, that's usually the issue.
Yeah, yeah.
But
It's an educated guess, we'll call it.
yeah, let's go with that. That works. Uh, well, since this is more hardware than software, is there anything that you'd like to tell people? Any advice? Anything you want to show off?
No, well, I mean, honestly, I think if anyone's interested in it, just try it. It doesn't have to be something that is as polished off or as complicated as a portable. Just any type of modification to get you going in some type of hardware is a good start. But not that I want to steal a quote from Ben, but he was very right when he said this years ago, and it's kind of what got me into it as well. It's just like the world is filling up with people who are dependent on electronics. They're dependent on everything around them uh, in their day to day life, and none of them have a clue how it works. It's just if you don't understand the basics and principles of electronics, then it's very difficult to even get started. But electronics, really, as far as the basic principles go, are about as simple as it comes. You got a positive and a negative. To make something run, it's got to be in a complete circuit. It's got to go from one thing, come back to ground, and you start out with that little bit of knowledge, and then just look to see how that works, and just kind of go from there.
Hmm.
But he was very right when he said that, and like just me being able to do this now has helped in my real life with repairing things in the house, or not being dependent on a consumer product to get what I want. So, repairing headphones or audio jacks or even HDMI stuff now, it's all within the capabilities that I picked up since I was doing this as a hobby. So it's not just a hobby, it's something that really it's an educational experience that has benefit to it.
Okay. Oh, very fair answer. I mean, it's true. Everything's electronic now. Pretty much. I mean, you want to contact someone? What's your email? Do you Skype and all that?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, for me, I've been on the internet since it started. Back then
Yep.
it was email, but it cost you a lot of money to be online.
Yep.
And
Yep.
and now it's, do you Skype? Do you do this? Do you do that? Before these interviews, I never even opened Skype.
Yep. And you brought up a good point though too. I mean, there's two separate sides to the technology as well, and that's always going to be that way, is the hardware and the software, which we were talking about before. And Skype, the internet, everything that runs off of some form of hardware, you're not going to be using that if a capacitor or something like that blows in the computer. And then what do you want to do? You want to look over it and find out, oh, here's a cap, it's 10 cents, I can just solder a new one right in place, it works again. Or shit, $2,000, I gotta buy a new computer. it
Huh.
you can when you can fix things yourself and recognize the problems, I mean, the possibilities are really endless and really helpful, and much less dependent.
Uh, well, speaking of that, I don't know if you've caught this debate that I've been having with some of the forum members. Um,
There's so many.
all right. Well, I have four different TVs. One's a 65-inch plasma that, on a plasma TV, unfortunately, if one thing goes, the others may go too.
Hmm.
Um, it started out as one bad cap, replaced it, TV worked. But then the other board went. Now all three boards are gone.
Hmm.
And I keep hearing, oh, why don't you just go buy another 65-inch, which is like 3,000, maybe more,
Plasmas, yeah.
instead of spending what, $200 on all three boards and the time to lift this monster and put it down so I can fix it.
Hmm.
I haven't really, I haven't like really sat here saying, oh, have to fix it, do it every day. I have another TV sitting here. But the three other TVs, one was replace a board, it's downstairs, it works. Another one had three busted caps. The caps cost me like $4, came from Hong Kong or somewhere, took like a week. But
Hmm.
open the TV, put them in, it works. So I saved three of the four because they were LCDs and not plasmas. But I keep getting, oh, why don't you go spend 2 or 3 thousand on one instead of, $200 or whatever it's going to cost.
Hmm.
Though this TV has specific boards for it because of the plasma, which
Yeah.
that's been a pain.
Well, the driver boards and every technology is different anyway, but it's still the principle. if you can get the boards and the screen's fine and that's not blown up, then there's really no reason why you can't just, do the upgrade, or even just get it repaired for that matter too, instead of going out and buying a new one. But it, then the repairs, you take it out to a professional, then yeah, that's going to take some time and some money. But still, I mean, it if you can do it yourself, it really is a huge factor. And you just gotta not be afraid to void warranties.
Oh well, that's past that. So, but it's,
I,
I mean, it's the same concept of what you were saying. I mean, instead of go out, spend a whole bunch of money for something new, sit there, fix it, or at
mhm.
least try.
Yeah, and that's what it's all about, is just trying new things and getting out of your comfort zone, because you're not going to learn this stuff even if you go to a community college or something like that. You'll learn the basics, which is great, but the practical side of things you're not going to learn about until you actually have a need to do it. And so, I had a need, or I had a want, I should say, and I just went for it. And yeah, I failed a bunch of times, but it's just, that's part of it. And once you get there and past that, then it's really cool to see, you start to see something develop, and as it's coming to, and the skills that you've acquired throughout the entire process all converge onto one project. It's just an amazing feeling to see that take off. And then when other people notice it, I mean, that's a big bonus.
True, because now I can say I repaired three TVs.
Yep.
I mean, the fourth one's, well, it's dead, but the other three work.
But
Yeah.
sometimes you got to do that with certain things. But when it comes to the
It,
point where it's not really worth the time and effort.
well, this thing is 65 inches. It's a monster trying to get this thing off the stand and move it. So that's kind of why I haven't done it.
Yeah, well, yeah, there's always those obstacles.
But yeah, it's true. You do have to do it, or at least make the attempt. Then you'll know if you can or not.
Hmm. And if you can't, then you'll figure out why you couldn't. And that's another big thing, is
It's true.
figuring out the why, and then that prepares you for the next time you come across some sort of situation like that.
Very true.
You know?
Well, Chris, I'm out of questions for you. So,
No,
um, if you have anything you want to add, feel free.
well, I mean, I'd like to, thank you for the time for this, and it kind of helped me get a little bit off my chest and so forth of, what I wanted to say, at least about this project. And I mean, yeah, and if anybody wants to know or learn anything about this even more, I'm pretty open when it comes to how to get in contact with me. Um, I've got my personal website, which is pretty much what I use to showcase all the projects I've done and so forth. Um, and I like to keep build logs of everything I do, because that's another big thing, that if you needed advice, um, do a build log. Find a site. I'm a mod over at the Made by Bacteria forums, which is dedicated solely to console modding. And if you start up a thread and a build log with pictures and everything like that, it's a great reference tool to go back to if you ever needed it, or you took something apart and all of a sudden you don't remember where that wire was supposed to go, and you got a picture of it before you took it apart. And so it's little things like that that come in very helpful when you're starting out on a project like that.
Okay. And do you have any other sites or anything that you want to plug?
Oh, sorry. um, well, just the downingsbasement.com is my personal site, so that's where you can just go and check out, like I said, everything that I'm doing on there. Um, and the Made by Bacteria thread forum is, like I said, a really good one for novices, intermediates, everybody. And oh, the Ouya forum, yeah, I got to plug that one, don't I?
Well, yeah.
No, but that's actually been a lot of fun, is getting involved in that community too, and meeting you guys, face to face and getting to meet people like Pip and Riot and all of them. They've been a lot of fun, and it's pretty cool seeing how the other side of things works because as I said, I've been hardware all along, and when you get into developers and people, talking with those and seeing the people who actually create the content, it's really cool. I mean, the interview you did with the Duck game creator, that was really fun to watch and see his and listen to his side and take on things because it's informative and it's a lot of fun to learn about.
It's ironic. You just mentioned the community. Over on Twitter, someone has been saying, screw Ouya, they have no community and everything else. Yet, she doesn't know anything about the forum or
Yeah.
anything else that's out there, which unfortunately is a problem for us.
Well, people are going to talk, and that's one of the biggest things that I've come up to as well. I mean, I could go off on a whole nother tangent with this one. It's just the internet is the internet. It gives people the ability to say what they want without having a consequence behind it. And yeah, it's a nice shield and it's fun, but people who mouth off like that are never going to say anything to someone who they speak to face, not like that anyway.
Hmm.
And so you just got to kind of take it with a grain of salt too, because and with anything new, there's going to be resistance. There always has been. And it's
True.
just a matter of really being able to not necessarily tolerate it, but look at it as a constructive beatdown.
Hmm.
Because
What?
one way or another, you're gonna, if you're talking about it, then yeah, press is press, good or negative. You're gonna get the negative. There's no way around that. And
Hmm.
I was actually surprised at how little negative I got off of this, but I still got the same comments. Why don't I use my phone? Or some guy was just being a jackass and called the thing ugly, like right to my face, pretty much. Just like, okay, good for you. I'm glad you're happy being an asshole. But it was just,
Okay. Yeah, I've had
it's
that
just that there's
happen too.
people out like that, and that's how they get their joy sometimes, and you can't take that type of criticism with any merit. It's
Hmm.
useless, and so there's no real reason to get upset about it.
That's true. I'm not going to give her name, but ironically, you know what she reviews? Indie games. But the Ouya community is not there. Yet
Yeah,
she reviews indie games.
anything indie is small, and what is she trying to compare that to? It's just this. This is still a new platform. It's still just getting on its feet, and it's got a long way to go to hit a mainstream, so to speak. And the problem with mainstream, though, is it clashes with indie on every level
Hmm.
because people are going to have such high expectations, but freedom doesn't necessarily create the best content. And so that's kind of an up and down side of things. We're going to get good games, but without the restriction, like anything to get on Xbox or Steam, something of that nature, has to go through hell and high water to do so. That's going to be the big challenge, and it's just going to be more or less what Ouya needs to do is get to that grassroots level and start growing from there, which I think they're doing. I think they're on the right track, but it's just going to take a lot to get the traction that they need, and the visibility that this is going to require to break into a bigger market.
Oh, that's true. And it looks like they're starting to turn some of this stuff around, getting more social media friendly and all that. But
Yep.
as far as the community, how do you view the community that supposedly doesn't exist?
Well, it's very very friendly, and it's very it's made up of a whole bunch of people who are trying to do the same thing and know the same struggles. Anything from developers to Twitch streamers, they're all trying to do and produce something that people are going to want to play, have fun. So pretty much everyone's got each other's back on there, and it you don't really see a lot of that out in the open internet. Mostly it's just what the hell are you doing and bashing down on every little thing. Here there's a lot more constructive criticism behind it, which is what is really needed, because not many people, I don't understand why people seem to think that bashing something down is going to make it better. If you're just trashing it and not giving anything back constructively, there's no reason for the people to want to continue to develop it. And therefore, indie games and development can sometimes turn into crap, because why would I put in all this time and effort if people are just going to crap on it anyway? So
Mm-hmm.
you just really got to look at it and know, like, before you open your mouth, that there are consequences to things that you say. And if you want to have great games and you want to have, something that is fun to play and enjoyable and refreshing and new, give it a chance, or say, in a not so dickhead method, yeah, I think you should really be able to just do this, but what if you tried doing this? Or just give some sort of feedback, as opposed to this sucks. It's not that hard.
That's true.
So anyway, that's my rant.
All right.
I know it's not going to change much, but it's still, if people just thought a little bit more, the quantity and the content and the pleasure of gaming and social media and all of that would be so much better.
Oh,
It'd be
it's
a lot more friendly, and a lot more people um, willing to do more and go above and beyond to make that great content if they think it's going to be appreciated.
definitely true. And a lot of times people don't realize that there are people behind these things. They think it's just some company or whatever, which
Mm-hmm.
is part of the reason I started this whole interview thing, so that they can see the actual people behind it, not just faceless name company.
Right.
So,
And I think that's very important. I mean, it, we're not all machines yet, and it's everything that we do now is behind a screen in this kind of wall of invisibility or anonymity, and that can be good, that can be bad. It's just it. If you're gonna build something, though, you got to get out there. You got to tell people that this is what you're doing, and this is, there's somebody behind it who's putting a lot of time and effort to try and do this for you, or just to create for fun or something of that nature. So that's really that's really a critical aspect of this, I think, and it's just getting a face to these games.
uh, well, as you know, we were at the wrap up, but now we're like 20 minutes past the wrap up. um,
It
this,
doesn't take long to go off on a tangent. I'm
no,
sorry. I do like to talk about this stuff, though, and it,
oh,
it feels good to be able to get it out and have someone listen to it and know exactly what's going on. I mean,
no, that's,
very rare. I really highly doubt there's going to be a lot of people who make it this far into the video to really see this part, but
well,
it's just
uh,
but it's there, and it's
no, but what you bring up is true because a lot of times you don't have someone to say it to, or look at PlayStation and all the others. You don't get this type of opportunity. I
no,
mean, when I put out my game, someone's going to have the opportunity to sit there and question me until they're blue in the face, and either I answer and, act like a member of the community, or I can be a jerk and say, screw you. Either way, at least I have that opportunity where you don't get that anywhere else. Not that I'm
yeah.
going to do that. So,
Yeah, but I guess, yeah, I guess that's just really it. I I don't know if I'd want to try and find another tangent to go off on, because I know I
well,
will. But again, I know we had a fun time trying to actually meet up and get this done. But I'm really glad that we did get the chance to have this little sit down.
well, unfortunately, life came up. Um,
Yep, it does. I fully understand. I'm right there with you.
but
Gonna be bringing a little baby. What's that?
go ahead, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just saying it's gonna get crazy. I'm gonna be bringing a little baby down in modern in October, so pretty excited about that too.
Mm-hmm. See, these are things
So
you don't get anywhere else because we have guys on the We had a guy on the forum, he disappeared. He was building this game based on what his daughter wanted. I mean, where
Hmm.
else are you going to find that story? He would sit there and write, he would write up what she wanted. There were zebras and aliens, and it just went all over the place. But no, if you're
Yeah.
talking to someone producing for Sony, if you even get to them, you're not going to hear those type of stories.
Yeah. No, it's a very limited and exclusive membership up there, from what I hear.
Yeah, but well, we're just like one big dysfunctional family,
Sure.
pretty much.
Hey, everyone's got to start somewhere. But all right, well, yeah, I guess if that's all we got, I mean, I'm sure I'll think of other things I wanted to say as soon as we hang up. But it was
Yeah,
good.
that always happens.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, but
well, yeah, I can't think of anything else to ask you as of now. Who knows? Maybe we'll be doing a part two when you become big and famous with your little portable
yeah,
things. Um,
uh, I don't think fame is really in my future by any means.
hey, you never know. Maybe you'll have the cross plane take off or something.
Yeah, well, we'll see. There been talks about it, but nothing really has come of it. But it's also very early, and there's a million different ways these things could go. So
Oh, that's true.
never hold your hopes up higher than your standards because it falls a lot harder that way.
Hmm. I might have to start using that line. Oh, oh, that's a good
Well,
one.
all right.
Because,
Say I can be quick sometimes.
as you know, on the forum, a lot of people ask me for advice. Sometimes you're stuck for the right thing to say, and they may have a great idea, but it may take a lot more effort than they're putting in or able to put in. So
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you do need, you know, don't try to don't try to go too far out of your range if you can avoid that.
Yeah. I mean, it's good to get out of your comfort zone, but don't get in so far over your head that there's no way to resurface.
Exactly. Because
You gotta kind of wade out into the shallows first, and then once you're comfortable there, you can start going out a little bit further. But there's always going
exactly.
to be a tide that's either going to push you further away or pull you back in. So you got to take care of that and know know how to compensate for it.
Yep, very true. Well, I want to thank you for the interview.
Thank
Fo-
you.
Folks, that was Chris Downing, maker of the latest Ouya portable. I'm sure there are many others coming, but hey, his looks good. You have you, Crow. Forget the others. These two are where it's at. You need advice? Ask them. All
Sounds
right,
like a plan.
all right. That was Chris Downing, and this is Killswitch signing off.